To Vicenza Oro September 2021. I'm Marco Carniello. I'm the director of the Jewelry and Fashion Division of Italian Exhibition Group, and on behalf of the whole company and the whole team, I thank you for being here in Vicenza, and to anyone who is following us on our web channels online now in streaming. Today is we're opening a very special edition. Vicenza Oro has been closed for more than 21 months. So imagine just this whole all in the darkness for many months. And today we are open. It's all live. We have many companies here, many people. We have around 800 exhibitors in 6 or 7 halls. And many of them are Italian, 70%, 30% are from all over the world, 24 countries. Unfortunately, we still don't have our friends from India, our friends from Thailand, our friends from China, hopefully in January. So how we did that? Well, with a lot of courage, yes. I mean, till 3 months ago, we weren't sure to be able to open a new show. But we believed in it, and we really felt a sense of responsibility. And probably responsibility is one of the key words here, because fairs have a lot of responsibility to the sector, and we feel the responsibility to open again shows, to bring here every one of you, but also to bring here some topics we need to support. And you know that for years already we have been supporting especially the SDGs from the United Nations, the Sustainable Development Goals. And today, in fact, we are here to get a little bit deeper on the SDG 5, right? Is about gender equality, and we'll have our friends here to discuss this topic together. The third element that is important to remind here is community. So we are here because of you, because we cannot do anything just opening a hall or having bars and stands. It's all about the community. It's about you. Community is exhibitors, is a buyer, but also designer, is also association. They support the development goals. Is professors, is schools, is everyone. So we are here to support the community, and the community is getting larger and larger. So thanks Donatella Zappieri for being with us for the first time on our stage. Thanks so much. Thanks. You'll be introduced much better from Donatella, but thank you, Iris. Laurence, thank you for being here. Linda as well, and I know there's going to be a couple of connections online. So enjoy the show, enjoy discussing also our own topics, under responsibility. Thank you so much. Grazie, Donatella.
Grazie. Grazie, Marco. Grazie for the introduction, and good afternoon to everyone. I'm extremely happy to be here with you. Sorry if my voice is a little bit shaking, but I feel very emotional. I'm very honored to be hosting this panel on women in jewelry and also moderating the conversation with all these wonderful ladies. I'm very grateful to Vicenza Oro, who gave me the opportunity to bring our guests here live, but also on streaming, and really opening up the topics that we will be discussing about. So during our conversations with our wonderful and amazing women, we will be discussing topics such as diversity, gender equality, sustainability, sourcing. So we will really enhance all those problems also that women face in the industry, with the hope also to bring some solution to these problems. We will be discussing with this business perspective in mind, because we are extremely aware that once you know the problem, you enhance the problem, you've already found half of the solution to that. So through the understanding, through the listening of all our ladies' experiences, I'm sure that all of us, we will be able to take out what we like to define as the feminine wisdom. And we will really give a very interesting business perspective, knowing that there is a chance for women to be much more active in our industry. And women can really have also a very positive impact to the overall industry. So in our panel conversation, I'm sure you will get to know better our guest, and through their experience, through the tale and the testimony of what they've been doing throughout their personal as well as professional life, you will get very interesting insights, and I'm sure this will give all of us a very interesting hope for the future. So I'm just eager to present and introduce to you our panelists. I will start with Linda Kozloff-Turner, straight from Denver, Colorado. And Linda, I'm so amazed to have you here because we've been talking, discussing over the phone, via Zoom so many times. And here you are, presenting your amazing project that I will unveil in a second. Laurence Ardies from Antwerp, right? An amazing fine jewelry designer. Iris van Veken, there you are, our responsible jewelry executive director. And we also have on streaming, I think they will be appearing in a second. Here you are, ladies. So, first of all, good morning to Sheryl Jones. There you are, from New York. So, here she is, you know, straight in the morning, and Chaoqiu from Shanghai. So thank you for being with us. I know, Chaoqiu, it's quite late for you in the evening, but thank you to be part of our panel tonight. Tonight for you and this afternoon for us. So here we are with our amazing ladies, and I would like to start introducing once again Linda. Linda has an amazing project to share with us this afternoon. Linda is a jewelry designer, a photographer. What I like, you mentioned you are a wife, a mother, and also a grandmother, right? Recently. You also have your studio, Jewellery Design, Christine Marguerite Design. Yes. And you are here this afternoon to introduce to all of us this amazing project you've been working on for the latest couple of years, I would say. 5 years. So Linda wrote a book. The title is 100 Women of Jewelry, where she portrays 100 magnificent ladies, and she tells the story, the entrepreneurial and personal stories of these ladies. So I'd like to start asking you this important question, which is, I guess, a summary of your 5 years' work. How did you select these women? Because I know you took like a special way to find them, yes, to interview them, get pictures. So tell us all about this project.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you, Donatella, for inviting me to be able to unveil this project. It's been 5 years of really hard work. I've been in the jewelry industry since I was very young, and I do own a studio. And after years of business, I woke up one day and I thought, am I the only woman going through what I'm experiencing? I set out at that moment, I saw the project in its entirety. I knew that I had to interview 100 women. I had to get a really broad spectrum of perspective on this industry from a woman's point of view. I wanted to hear what her story was. So many times we focus on the jewelry, but the truth is there's a story behind that jewelry. There's a person who makes that jewelry, and I wanted to get to that story. And basically, this is how the entire project was conceived. I started in a very clumsy manner. I started with one interview, and then it was 5, and then it was 10. I had no idea what I was doing, but I did know one thing, that when I started looking for women jewelry designers, and I typed that into the search bar, I came up with men's jewelry designs that made jewelry for women. And I went, wait a minute here, something is not right. I went forward from there and had to contour my search. It ended up being female jewelry designers, but I started with 1, I started with 10, I started with 20. And then in every interview, I started asking each woman, who do you think I should interview? So I started to leapfrog from one person to another. I actually tried to go to all the artist studios, which was insane. I don't suggest anyone do that. And I got stood up by some artists. But what I ended up doing was going to the shows. So many of the shows like Couture invited me in, and I'd be able to go and interview and hopefully photograph all of these women. I also knew that this needed to be an exhibition. So I am also curating the largest women's jewelry exhibition that has ever been put together in the history of time. 100 women in one venue, 3 to 5 pieces each, should really show the amount of work and the incredible feminine wisdom that comes to the table in this jewelry industry. To select the women, they needed to be technically proficient, obviously, but they also needed to bring something very important to the table, something different. So as a curator, I wasn't looking for the same jewelry, the same jewelry, the same jewelry. I wanted a global perspective, a diverse perspective, and I wanted a powerful, interesting, and authentic story from each woman. And believe me, that's what I got.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you. And this shows already, you know, what we are mentioning, typing, mainly men's jewelry. And then you went one step further, searching, investigating, and then you came up with this amazing array of women in our industry. So thank you for this opportunity, because I know it's the first time ever Linda is presenting her book. And next year it will be published, released, and also exhibitions will take place around the world. So this afternoon, we really get this opportunity to have with us some of the women that Linda featured in her book. So Laurence, I'd like to start with you. It's interesting because when I was reading for the first time your interview, you quote that you grew up surrounded by diamonds. I think this is part of your family business, but somehow you never wanted to work with diamonds, and you had like a soft spot for color gems, which shows into your jewelry. I mean, I had the opportunity to look at your jewelry yesterday, and I was pretty amazed.
Thank you, that's so nice.
Really, no, really. And somehow, I think it reflects you as a person. I think your jewelry is an amazing interpretation of who you are.
Thank you.
Which is very, very nice. So, you know, you are based in Antwerp. Mm-hmm. You studied art, yes. And then you decided to join your family business to kind of continue, but you will explain us a little bit more about that. And today you design amazing jewelry with amazing stones.
Thank you.
And I know you also have an interesting eye for selecting stones and really caring for authenticity and transparency. So my question to you is, how did you make it through? Would you like to share with the audience, you know, some of the insights that you had to kind of go through to become who you are today, a woman in the industry?
Thank you. Like you said, I grew up in the industry through my family, so I saw diamonds and jewelry since I was a small child. So for me, the industry always felt somehow familiar, like a second home almost. My mother, she took me to the diamond district in Antwerp since I was a small kid. Because I only had my grandmother and my mother as an example, for me, being a woman in this industry always felt normal. I never asked the questions that we're actually questioning today. I never even thought about it. Because to me, I only had that female example. I never knew anything else. And especially because I didn't choose to follow exactly my family's footsteps. Like you said, I only ever saw diamonds. I never saw colored gems. It made it even harder, I think, to carve my own path in the industry. And I encountered, of course, trials and errors. It's not easy to find your own suppliers and really do everything on your own, which is basically what I did. Today, almost all the people that I work with, from suppliers to craftsmen, I found by myself along the way, because my products is so vastly different from what my family does. And I'm a perfectionist at heart, so that doesn't make it easier at all.
I know, but I think it's a very important element also in your entrepreneurial skills, right?
Yeah. Finding your own way does make you grow, I think, in business and get to know yourself a little bit more.
Right, right. So I think we will also get to that, you know, for women in our industry. We need to study harder. We need to be even more professional. And then we really need to come up with our own identity to be performing in this industry.
Yeah, I agree.
So thank you. Thank you,
welcome.
Laurence. And I will get back to you with a few other questions later. But now I'd like to connect with Chaoqiu, if she can appear on the screen. Hopefully she should be there. Chaoqiu. Oh, there you are.
I'm here. Can you guys, yeah.
Hi, can you hear me
Hi,
properly?
nice to meet you. Yes.
Okay, great. So you also have a very interesting story to share with our audience this afternoon. So you left Shanghai when you were 15 and you went to the US to study at university there. And you also worked at Christie's and Rappaport.
Yes.
And then you decided to go back to China to be closer to your family. You worked, first of all, in the art industry, and then somehow you got also this soft spot for jewelry, which led you to start up your own jewelry brand. So I'd like really to ask you, in which way, you know, you felt confident once you went back to Shanghai, specifically with your also US education background, and in which way, again, you made it happen in your business, in your professional life?
First of all, I would like to thank you, Vincenza, Oro, Linda, Donatella, everyone, to invite me to join this global event. It's such a great pleasure for me. And can you guys hear me properly?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, great. I would like to give myself a little bit introduction to everyone. I guess I'm a very new face to Europe for sure. I grew up in a very long history of jade wholesale family. My father been deal jade in the last 30 years as a wholesaler and also a collector. So I basically almost a little bit like Laurence. I grew up with the jade and I grew up with a lot of rubies, sapphires, because every time when he went to Burma, he always brought those things back as parcels. So I play with that. So, but I never really thought about I would be in the jewelry business, because when I was young, my father's business person or the partners who surrounded with him is all male. I have to say, majority I saw is like, oh, this uncle is in this jewelry company, that uncle is in that jewelry company. I barely see a female face, honestly. But I went to States when I was 15 and I studied art history and economics over there. Then after that, I went to GIA to pursue my gemological studies, everything. Because I felt sort of a little bit, because I guess it's because the art history study experience leading me towards that. Because during the college, I went to a lot of different art galleries to finish my internship. So I got a chance to work with some currently top Chinese contemporary artists. I went to all the studios for internship, everything. So it makes me feel I want to be more creative at that time. I want to do something more interesting. Then jewelry, it is art. is a pure art, but it's just another form, except not like painting or sculpture, but it is a mini sculpture. Requires you 360 degrees detail attention for a lot of things. So yeah, then I started also, I think it's because these years, the development in China is very quickly, and I have to say it's fascinating. For me, it's a great opportunity. I could able to come back here in 2013. Then I have to say, my family gave me a lot of help at the beginning. So I established my studio in 2014, and I established my jewelry brand, QIU Fine Jewelry, around the same time. Then also because China has a very long history of jewelry, like collecting, craftsmanship, those dynasty jewelry now you can see in a museum. So it gives a lot of the understanding for Chinese collector about the great gemstone and the great craftsmanship. Also, they are more confident, they are more open-minded to accept the young designer, like to welcome emerging designers. So I think that's also some reason makes me more confident to come back here and establish my business and career here.
Right. Thank you so much. I mean, there are very interesting expressions that you mentioned. Jewelry is art. I love it, and it's so much true. And also, you know, when you talk about the tradition of your country, the handicraft, all those elements, I'm sure, you know, made you also feel a little bit going back home and feel reassured about what you had to achieve and to accomplish. So thank you. And now I'd like to pass over to Sheryl. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being with us, Sheryl. And you are one of the first and few Afro-American ladies operating your jewelry brand in New York, in the famous Diamond District.
Yes.
You've been featured on many publications, W, Women's Wear Daily, New York Times. And what is extremely also interesting from your background is that you started your career not in jewelry, right?
Right.
But in the entertainment, as you were VP Communication at MTV.
That's right. That's right.
And then again, right. So when you switched into jewelry, you started from scratch because you really went through the apprentice. And so we really would like to hear from you, you know, how was it? How do you feel, you know, being today one of the few Afro-American women, you know, in the diamond industry, and in which way you all put it together for your professional growth in the jewelry industry?
Right. Well, that's true. I mean, you know, I started out on the entertainment PR side. That was my first career. And I wanted to make a career change. And I decided that I wanted to pursue something in the diamond and gemstone industry. And I started out taking courses at GIA and fell in love. And from there, I found a job working for a Belgian diamond manufacturer. And I sorted his parcels for him, prepared his parcels, sorted stones. And that was sort of the entryway into the business. It was very challenging because as a woman of color and having basically no real industry ties, a lot of the people around me were third and fourth generation family-owned businesses. And I had to learn the business basically through mentors and people who were willing to sort of teach me how the whole industry worked. Being on 47th Street, for many people who haven't been there, the Diamond District is like a world unto itself. It's very complicated. There's a tremendous amount of business going on above the street level and on the street level on the retail side. So it's learning how to do business. And that was something that I needed to, you know, rely on other people to understand. But I think that was a very pivotal point in my life because I learned a tremendous amount about myself. I also had to learn how to source things, how to get things done, what right jeweler to use, the setter, the polisher, who had the right stones. And that just took time. And I think that experience, the last 20 years, has been about that. But it's been, as challenging as it's been wonderful. And I've met tremendous people along the way, wonderful, wonderful people. And I feel like now, having my own business, making jewelry, designing jewelry, my clients, the roster of clients that I have, I feel like I've really managed to achieve a certain level of comfort and experience and success. But it required learning the craft. It required having really good mentors, women along the way who had their own businesses, who understood how difficult it was, that, you know, allowed me to learn. And those were some of the key things that really were integral in my success.
Great, great. Thank you. And it shows and it proves very much, specifically because you were also very good into switching, you know, from one business, from one activity to the other. And then, as you mentioned, you know, you were kind of learning. You also get the opportunity to get women's mentors who helped you through, which is also bringing a very interesting hope message, you know, that this well-known sisterhood also works, you know, in our industry, in our professional life. And this is extremely interesting. So thank you for your testimony. So, and I will be getting back to you with further questions. So don't leave us. Stay there, stay online. Thank you.
Okay.
So Iris, you know, it's, I love this quote, sustainability pioneer, about you. And you are, you know, an amazing leadership executive. You've been working for more than 20 years in corporate, with also the opportunity to work in different businesses. So you didn't start in jewelry, but you started, if I'm not mistaken, from technology, fashion, and then, you know, jewelry and diamonds. And of course, everyone knows you, but since 2019, right, you are executive director of Responsible Jewelry Council. And I found a very interesting quote from an interview that you recently gave to VO+, where you mention, and I'm reading it loud to you, that when women, your legacy, when women are empowered, communities thrive. And it is imperative that every organization looks at their impact through a gender lens. And it is a moral obligation to drive this agenda forward. And I'm sure you are also anticipating to us a little bit of the report that you are presenting later on. So give us some insight, give us some hopes that things are developing and moving forward.
Well, first of all, I'm very happy to be here, and it's great to be with all these inspiring leaders. And Linda, congratulations for this initiative. I'm also, you know, very happy to support you on that. Looking back, you know, indeed I've been 20 years in this industry, and I'm very passionate about this industry. But I'm also very optimistic on the topic of gender, because we should also not forget that the topic of gender is a topic of evolution and not revolution. It's a very complex matter where you have to look across the world, you know, to regions, to culture, to bias, non-bias, attitudes, behaviors, policies. Look at governments, where there's so many countries where you still have legislation that's discriminating in different areas. So I think my first message to each one of you is no one can do this alone. So we need partnerships and collaboration. And we need partnerships that are transformational. So what does that mean? It means is that we really need to show progress. And when we look at progress, what we see is that you need strong leadership and accountability. So just to give you, you know, a few points of some elements of the report is, first of all, leadership is critical. So we always see that if you have companies, you know, with strong leaders and CEOs with strong values, that often already the moral case is made, and that you see that there is much more accessibility to developing a policy on gender. Second is you need operationalization. So yes, you can have wonderful websites and you can have great social media posts, But at the end of the day, if your policies are not being breathed by your employees, and you really feel it when you're in an organization, and everything of the behavior of the leadership and the management and the approach is not there, it's really greenwashing. And I think we have to be very careful of that. The third element, what I slightly said, is, indeed about partnerships. I believe very much also in partnerships between governments and the corporate sector. I think if you look at the nation building, for example, in Botswana, also the work that De Beers is doing on gender, it has been instrumental. Another element is data. This morning I had the privilege to be at a breakfast, where Stephen Lucier was, talking about brands with purpose and how important it is to tell, what a company is doing to society and to people and planet. I think that will become even more important also regarding the gender element. Because at the end of the day, gender equality is a business case. Look at the McKinsey report, where I think it's about 28%, outperform other companies if they're integrating gender at the corporate culture. And then finally, policy development. I think that governments also have to step up, and it doesn't mean because you have a weak legal framework that companies have to close their eyes. By leadership, they can take action and they can develop stronger policies where women are at the heart of this integration. So yes, I am optimistic. I do believe we need to accelerate action. If you look at the recent report from Davos, 257 years to close the gender gap, I think that's concerning, and I think that is a shared responsibility that we need to take very seriously.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you for giving us a message of support and hope. And as you mentioned, it's really now about being conscious, but at the same time, being conscious that we need to accelerate. Because as you said, in most of the organization with the feminine wisdom and acumen, things works out better. So
yeah, Donatella, one comment I do want to make is that we don't have enough men around the table. Let's look in this hall. I appreciate the men that are sitting here, but we need more men. We can't do it alone.
Absolutely.
And we have to be careful that we don't start being biased towards men, because, there are very good leaders. Definitely. I had the privilege to work with really good leaders on my path, so.
Definitely, absolutely, absolutely. So it's an interesting balance that we need to achieve and we need to accomplish. Right, so I forgot earlier on to tell you that if there are questions from the audience, feel free at the end of our panel to raise your question, and you can raise your question in Italian, and I will be happy also to translate to our panelists in case you don't feel comfortable about the language. So now I'd like to go back to Linda with a question to you. Linda, you explained to us the book, The 100 Women of Jewellery. We are all super anxious to see the release of it, but I'm sure that through your interviews, through your catching up and meeting with all these women ladies, you'll also learned a lot of things.
I absolutely did. I was shocked at what I ended up learning. I couldn't have imagined what I was about to encounter. I perhaps went into this a bit cavalier, and I came out very stunned at what I learned. The first thing I learned was that I was not alone, that many of my experiences as a woman in the jewelry industry, I was actually having common denominator. I met people that were having similar experiences. And I think until you talk about those experiences, you don't really know that they're common shared ground. And I found that to be very relevant in the course of this project. I also learned that was striking and quite stunning is that there was a lot of happiness and success in this industry, but there was a lot of grief and sorrow. There was a tremendous amount of determination, perseverance to actually make it. And the amount of work that it took was sometimes 10 times more than what was expected. The obstacles were not only different, but in some cases much, much more difficult. I'm proud to say that all the women, 100 of them in 5 years, 101 actually, are still in business. That was something I was concerned about. After 5 years, was I still going to be relevant? Was this project still going to be happening? Because I couldn't even imagine what I was about to encounter as with the world in terms of a global pandemic. That was a bit of a shocker. I found that building a community was a powerful tool for the betterment of all. That once these women started realizing, so I started putting emails in and everybody started getting the emails, and I'd interview somebody, I'd add their email to the list. Pretty soon I had 101 emails. And all these women were able to connect with each other. And I was amazed at how much that meant to everybody and how people felt about knowing that there were other women that were experiencing what they were experiencing. I found out that community is a necessity to rely on, and that sometimes it is imperative to put aside business competition. That the women were willing to share their stories, that was something more than what I expected. I expected to talk about jewelry in the beginning. I did not expect to talk about loss of family and how that became an impetus for a woman to survive in the industry. I learned that jewelry is as much about the item, it's as about the people who brought it to the market, that there's a story behind there. I think we sometimes focus strictly on product, and product is not the end-all here. What makes the product is what's important, and we need to look past that product to understand how that product got to the market. I understood that sharing this wisdom is important to realize the past, understand this moment, and change the direction of our future. I could have never predicted when I started this project what would happen in our world and the relevance that these women's stories would have during these incredibly difficult times. Talking to women during COVID, in many cases, women gave up their brick and mortar to keep their manufacturing families alive. I found that to be profound. They took care of the people first and worried about the business and the retail later. But I want to really emphasize something that I feel is absolutely penultimate in importance. And that everybody here, it's about the bottom line. We talk about the bottom line, the market, what's for sale. Where are we going to go with this? How are we going to expand our business? How are we going to increase? How are we going to grow? It is my observation, after interviewing 101 women, that if the industry wants to grow and wants to look forward, we need to include all women, women of color, not as supports, but as leaders in this industry. Think about the whole world there that is yet untapped. If you want to grow, that's the future of this growth. It can't be the same over and over again, year after year. For how many years is it going to be the same? There's a whole world yet to be discovered here, and that women in every respect are the future of this industry. And it would be wise to start noticing that now, today, as we move forward in our businesses to increase the ability to take care of our families.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you. That's an amazing overview statement. We see people clapping hands in the audience, and it's very emotional also for me, to be listening to you and also understanding everything that you went through in the 5 years, collecting information, talking to the women, and as you say, also bringing, their stories across in the right way, because also writing about all of them has been, an amazing journey for you. So really thank you for your publication, for the work that you've been doing. So, Laurence, you mentioned again, in the interview, that you encountered a lot of prejudices from men in this profession who have been working in the industry for a long time. So how did you make it? In which way did you make it happen to perform?
First of all, I do want to mention that I work with, I think, 90% men in what I do. It's just a fact. Craftsmen, when I buy gemstones, it's usually men that I work with. And almost all of them have always been lovely. I do want to press that.
Absolutely.
But I think we've all encountered a situation as a woman that when you enter an office, you feel like you have to do a little more. You need to prove yourself more than I think most men have to. Even if it's just a thought in your mind, it's there.
Yeah.
You have that feeling. We talked about it as well. I don't know why it's still there, but it is. And especially at my age, it doesn't come easy. I'm 26, so it doesn't help being taken seriously. Even though maybe I might have more knowledge than a man double my age entering that same office, but usually that's not expected at all. And I noticed that, which isn't always fun, I can say that. But it can also be a positive thing, because I've seen it as an advantage as well, because it's almost an element of surprise somehow. It's always better, I find, to find a positive angle, even if you're working with a prejudice, and make it use it to your advantage, because people will judge you anyway.
Absolutely.
They always will. It's a human thing. And like I said before, I did see my grandmother and my mother working in the jewelry industry, so I never questioned any of this until I encountered these things myself. And I never realized before how hard it must have been for my grandmother in the 1950s, in her early 20s as an entrepreneur, and what she must have encountered. Uncomfortable situations because of gender and age, and even back then, and even still, my mother, certain behavior just wasn't questioned.
Absolutely.
And it was seen as normal. And for today, I think we have a different take on equality in business and what it actually means. It's about so much more than just being able to do the same thing, sell or buy, than a man.
Absolutely, absolutely. Just finding your way, your personal way to do it and to make it happen. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Especially and these things are why the book that Linda is writing is so important, to shed a light on the issues that are still happening. Even though they're smaller than they used to be, they're not as present, but they are there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's our duty to mention them, overcome them, and find a way. Also, like Iris was mentioning, it's not fighting against, but finding the proper balance and make it happen, taking into consideration both angles. And this is how this will hopefully open up also in different perspectives. So now I'd like to go back on streaming with Chaoqiu. Hi. So in your collection, in your jewelry collection, you use a lot of non-oiled or minimal oiled emeralds. So from the way you were telling me about your business, you've been traveling to Colombia many times to source your emeralds. So once again, also to discuss a little bit more the ethical issues, the stone sourcing, I'd like to ask your experience about going to the mines in Colombia, about sourcing emeralds, and also the way, once again, you had to set up yourself as a professional to be recognized in that kind of business.
Thank you, Donatella. I think that's a very, very great question, because I have to say I'm definitely one of the few Asian, as a lady, went to Colombia quite oftenly, especially to visit mine. I think it's also because related to my childhood memory with my parents, because especially my father, he always go to Burma to visit the jade mine over there. I have to say, the situation in Colombia and in Burma is quite similar. Their economic status, the mining situation is very similar. They have gorgeous landscape, but I have to say, when I first time visit Colombia, I was very shocking, except they have beautiful landscape, everything, people are extremely nice. But when the moment the helicopter landed in Muzo in the mine, I have to say, it is quite an extraordinary experience. The situation over there is very rural. The high technology, no matter how developed now, it couldn't access there. It's very difficult, no matter on the roads, transportation, facilities. It's very difficult over there. And especially, I think the important bring me go there is the first thing. I think professionalism is very important, and my own passion, and also the persistence. So I get the chance to know the really right people in the local. So they took me to the mine to literally visit, and I even saw the whole exploration and how they do the dynamite right now. So it's very difficult for all those miners, especially they all individual mining. They basically have to every day carry the water and carry the food and go to the mine by themselves, literally. They probably took them months and months to find a proper stone, a proper rough crystal to sell. It is the fact. And especially now I couldn't imagine, because during the pandemic, I wouldn't be able to visit them almost in more than a year. I couldn't imagine how the situation now in South America for current post-COVID time. Many, because I still work with a lot of the emerald, even like for my new collection. So I've been talking to the local resource all the time. I have to say, currently it's very, very hard and more difficult to find a proper rare stone, especially when I work with all those extremely rare and fine quality gemstones. The situation, the supply is getting higher and higher. It's much more harder than before, because you can't find the right people right now, still keep going to the mine every day during this situation. So the reason why I always want to go there is I really want to know what is the real situation over there. Because as a part of the industry, no matter from which world, no matter as a female or male, we all have to be more helpful. But it was quite funny for me at the beginning when the first time I visited there, because everyone, all the Colombian, they call me Chica. And they always fun, they quite surprised. There's a lady literally went there with them under the ground, went down to 200 meters to dig those stones. But I have to say, it is very great experience as a designer, because I really understand more about the nature, what is the emerald, where they're coming from, except not only coming from the textbook, not only just coming from the trade. I literally see how it formed as a rough crystal, and also all the inclusion and everything, because, emerald has a lot of different degree of oil. And I understand some dealers, they actually using resin to oil, some using Parmesan. So as the synthetic oil or the nature oil, it really also gives a different quality and different appearance for the stone. So it's kind of like a really great thing for me. It makes me more confident to present those values to the clients. I'm more understand what I'm explaining to them.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this testimony, and I think it's extremely interesting to learn more about what you were saying, the condition, the way those workers are in the mines, the way they source the stones. And as you say, it's extremely valuable also to hear that you wanted to know more of what was happening in order then to be also more strong and solid when you actually sell your jewelry pieces. And I guess that also for you, it required a lot of again, learning, understanding, and study to be able to be, again, consistent and relevant once you were going to the mines for your sourcing. So thank you for that. Thank you for sharing this with the audience. Cheryl, here you are again. So again, talking ethical issues. Cheryl, you also mentioned that one of the biggest issues, is Cheryl there? Can't see her.
Am I here?
There you are, because I can't see you. Here you are.
Okay.
So you mentioned that one of the biggest issue that people are still facing in the industry is that they buy jewelry without asking or seeing a Kimberley certification that will assure, the buyers that they are actually buying ethically. So I know that you are extremely sensitive to this topic. So I really would like to hear your point of view about that and in which way you think this could be evolving in a positive way compared to the industry and those issues.
Okay. So I think for my clients who are often Black or African American, the issue is transparency. And I think that is across the board for many clients. They want to know more about the stone and where it's sourced. And I think that this is a place where we as jewelry designers and manufacturers can really lean in. From the perspective of diamonds specifically, I think that because of the Kimberley certificate happening on the rough side, many end consumers are not familiar with how diamonds are manufactured and what the Kimberley certificates are. So they are really relying primarily on us and a GIA report. I think it's very encouraging now that GIA is starting to put country of origin for diamonds. I think that's a step in the right direction in terms of creating that transparency to instill trust in our buyers, that they know where it's coming from. I think that with gemstones, it's a totally different world. It's always been you can source it back. GIA can put a country of origin for a gemstone. And also too, I think when Linda was talking about stories about miners, stories about the country of origin, stories about artisanal miners, women who are now miners in African countries that are being supported, and they're able to market their goods directly, online to end consumers. All of those things, I think, help sort of lift our industry and create the sense of trust that really needs to be there in terms of how things are being sourced, how people are being treated when they're mining these things and getting them distributed. All of those lean in touch points, I think, are keys for all of us to be successful and to remain successful. Because as long as we are shrouded in mystery in terms of where we get goods, how things are processed, people are never going to feel like we are a part of this major initiative in the world to be much more accountable to each other. So I think that's really kind of the diamond industry is getting there. I think it's, like I said, the step of GIA putting the country of origin. I know it's tricky and it's time consuming and it's more expensive to get those certs. But if we can sort of figure out a way to work together as an industry to create that transparency, that's the move forward.
Thank you, Cheryl. And you're really bringing a lot of interesting topics, which I hope will be in the agenda from the organization, and they will be part of, the thinking for the future, because afterwards, this is really something that we in the industry, we face as issue, and this is where we also need to get a consensus, from a corporation point of view and also big association. And what you are saying gives me also the opportunity to hand over the conversation once again to Iris, because again, this afternoon you are presenting the first report on gender equality. You are actively working on the 2030 UN program. So can you share with us some additional news on what is happening and in which way things will be developing further.
Happy to do so, Donatella. I really liked what Sheryl said because one thing is the Kimberley process, but when you talk about sustainability, you can't isolate one element. You know, you need to have human rights, labor practices, health and safety, you know, mental and physical, but also product integrity and disclosure, environmental impact. You cannot isolate one element of the other, because what do you do if you give a wonderful check to a community project, but at the same time you have human rights abuses in a supply chain? That's not sustainable. And that's why we always talk about this is the decade of action. And allow me, you know, indeed to talk about the roadmap that RJC has developed with experts, and I invite you to look at it because it's about the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And we did research on which goals are most material to our industry to really show progress. And when you look at those goals, you have, of course, gender, because gender is a multiplier. We need to get half of the world included. You've got 8, decent labor, which seems very common, but lots of work to do, definitely in the wider supply chain. 12, responsible production and consumption. Later today, we'll have a panel with Sibjo on that. Then climate, and then partnerships. And I think I probably would like to end that it will be partnerships that will deliver exactly what we're looking at, because when that consumer walks in, they will ask more questions. Of course. And they're looking for purpose. And there I believe the industry has a huge opportunity to show the impact they can make on all of these goals. And finally, every small step matters. Sometimes when a family business tells me, but you know, Iris and sustainability, and it's too complicated. And I often say, but you are already on its own, your purpose is sustainability, because you're preparing your company for the next generation. And you're often doing wonderful things, only they're not placed in management systems. And I think that's where the RJC has a unique opportunity to bring you along the journey to integrate sustainability at the core of the business strategy. And, you know, always happy to take conversations offline on that.
Thank you, Iris. And this is a wonderful path to go forward. And really, I think it's bringing optimism, let's say, to what else is going to be happening in our future. So it's time to wrap up. Maybe there is a question from the audience. Anybody would like to ask questions? So, yeah, please.
Not a question, but I wanted to say thank you to Sheryl about mentioning the origin. A lot of the major brands today, they are not mentioning at all where the origin, a lot of the big brands are not mentioning where the origin of the gemstones are.
Absolutely.
And I think it's women like Sheryl who are insisting and creating a story that are actually saying, look, I can provide you the origin of the gemstone, versus a major brand which is kind of omitting it because of the problems. So the strength of women.
Thank you. Any more question or observation from our crowd here? Okay. David, please.
Thank you. How will you be able to measure when progress is being achieved towards achieving greater gender equality? What will be the benchmarks, and how will you measure it?
Benchmarks are going to be women feeling safe in their environment and completely safe, being able to walk into manufacturing and not being intimidated. Benchmarks are going to be women being able to take care of their families and taking the money that they get from the fruit of their labors and providing for their communities, and communities thriving therein. Benchmarks are going to be when we see 30 to 50% of people of color at a show like this. Those will be the benchmarks that we should be expecting, hopefully in the near future.
Thank you. Thank you, Linda. It's been an honor, you know, to really bring to our audience this project you've been working on. It's been an honor for me to moderate this panel. Laurence, Iris, Sheryl, Chaoqiu, and I'm sure you also would like to share a message to the 100 women you interviewed,
I do.
to all the women in the industry, and everyone, to everyone.
To everyone. I want to thank all 101 women for sharing their wisdom. I want you to thank you for being open to participating in this project. I want to assure you that your stories are relevant, that your work in this industry is important, and that I am honored to record this moment of your contributions in our history. That the ability to navigate and problem solve is the direction this world needs to take now more than ever. I want to thank you for taking care of your families and keeping the families in manufacturing alive. And my final analysis on this project, which came to me at a certain point during the development of it, is this became a book of 100 women's stories that all happen to be jewelry designers. I'd like you to follow me on Instagram, Women of Jewelry. I'm open to publishers with the same intention that I have. And I am in dialogue with several large houses for the exhibition, where our goal is November 2022. And I want to thank all the people here at Vincenzo, Donatella, Iris, Laurence, Sheryl, Chaoqiu, and to my husband and family who supported me throughout this process, and Frank Stankus, Peggy Sands, and certainly Yanni Mellis for his unending support and recommendations for the women who have been included here. Thank you all for attending this event today.
Thank you to everybody. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for...
One more thing.
Thank you.
Here are sample copies.
Wow.
Of 6 of the women that have been included in this project.
Oh.
Special for you.
Special gift. Thank you.
Enjoy.
So thank you to all. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. And, we hope that we could open up some thoughts, ideas for the future ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Donatella.